I'm gone the 16th
How was the lake?
to the 20th. Pine Valley.
I have video.
Was it busy? Was it
Where we go all the time.
Was it busy over there?
Not
Yeah.
until the 4th.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
That's some just space and lots of,
Okay.
that's nice.
it was glorious.
Welcome to City Council for tonight, July 8th, 2020. We will begin with an invocation by Reverend Montgomery from St. Jude's, and I haven't seen him unless there's anyone else from St. Jude's. Then we'll have Chief Adams, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Isom.
Our Father who art in heaven, we assemble this evening as a group of friends and citizens as we come to discuss the matters of our fair city. Father, we are grateful for the bounteous blessings that we receive at thy hand, for the great country and community in which we live. We're grateful for the democratic process and the opportunity it allows for us to elect representatives, to come and have our voices be heard and to make collective decisions. We pray for guidance and direction. We pray for blessings to be upon our council members, upon our city staff, upon our mayor, that they may be blessed with insight and with all the things they stand in need of to lead and guide us. Father, we're grateful for this time of year, for the celebrations of our independence. We're thankful for all those who serve selflessly to protect our freedoms and to make this city what it is. We pray for thy Spirit to be with us this night. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Let's all stand and join together in pledging allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I think I'm swapping the battle. Conspiracy theory.
All right, we will now move on to our agenda order approval. Are there any items the council would like changed from the published agenda? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to council business. Yes.
Couple of things. There are three items that I want us to revisit on our agenda. One is the contract for our general plan. We need to revisit that in light of what has come to light with respect to our contractor.
Can I update you on that?
Sure.
As we're going? We did the bid process. We had 3 bids come out for the general plan. Tyler's already sent the prior contractee notice that we're terminating his contract. Don's been in contact with the second guys on the list, Urban Planning, I think is their name. Rural Urban Consultants, thank you. And we're circulating back and forth a draft of a contract with them. We hope to bring it to you next week.
Perfect. Okay. Second, we'd like to get money in the hands of businesses sooner than later, so I'm just circling back on that CARES Act money and getting that put
Do you want an
together.
update?
You have another
So,
update for me?
yes.
Hey, I'm hitting the button.
2 for 2. No, it's good. This is good. The Treasury Department has expanded their guidance on how the money can be spent. So we're trying to keep up with that a little bit. We've circulated with department heads for different ideas on how we can utilize some of that money internally. We've had feedback from Karen's share and from the school district. What we plan on doing next week is amending the city's budget to book that money in, the $3 million and change. And at the same time, probably a different line item, we will present you with staff's idea of how we can spend that money. And then you can look at it and either approve it or tell us to do something different with that money. And once we vote on how to proceed, we will proceed. The county intends on going forward with their programming. They said they would send out copies of an interlocal agreement, a memorandum of understanding They're trying to do that by the end of this week. We haven't seen that yet. We don't know what it looks like, but they are making progress and moving forward. I hope I can get number 3 too.
Well, I don't know.
Can I, while we're on that subject, one question that I forgot to ask you is the nonprofits. Did we find out that nonprofits are able to be funded?
The current, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is the current draft that I've seen from the county of the guidelines for the program they're trying to run says you have to be a for-profit or not-for-profit business. So it's going to try to include both types of businesses.
Good.
Okay.
Oh, also they want you to serve on the committee on
Yes,
distributing
surprise,
money.
you and Danny.
I think I actually volunteered for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's good. All right. Number 3 was brought up by a former member of this council, and that's the idea of controlling what we have called snipe signs in the past, and the eternal campaign sign. The suggestion was we might ought to put some kind of boundary on that, and so those signs are up 2 months ahead of an election, but not for 6 months or 8 months before. So we're good on that too? Huh?
Well, so just to give the council, I guess, some explanation of how our ordinance reads. So this sign ordinance passed, I think it was in 2007. It may have been updated since then, but at that time the city council looked at restrictions placed on signage. When it came to political signs, the governing body at that time chose not to place any limitations on them. So obviously political signs would be considered free speech. The Supreme Court allows us to place reasonable restrictions on time, manner, and the place of those. So if the council wants to consider placing limitations on those political signs, that is something we could address.
The only thing we limit them on now is not on public property.
Okay. Having run for office, I mean, I know that, when do you pull the trigger? When do you put your signs out? And you're under pressure to not be the last one out, but maybe not the first one out. I just think that a boundary like that would actually really make it easier for everybody.
I would agree with you. I think if you look at our community, and it is part of the process of a democracy and a republic to do that, but I do think that in just decency and also for the overall appearance of our community, we ought to put some kind of limitations on it. And right now, I'm not prepared to say what that is, whether that is 4 months ahead of time or 2 months ahead of time, but then they should come down also at a very reasonable time after the election as well.
Agreed. That fence up there south of Chili's, near that's an abomination.
There's a fence.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that is horrible.
The-
And so if we can control that, I think we ought to make it an agenda item.
So we're 3 for 3.
One of the things I get it for commercial signs, and you see, especially when they're posted on people's property, when they didn't approve, or on city property. When it comes to elections, though, and the public process, I see something wrong with putting limitations on those, just because, especially those of us who are now in power, now we essentially give ourselves more of an advantage of incumbency, and we expand that advantage of incumbency. And so now I'm not against public shaming. And so if a candidate is out way too early, I'm not against publicly shaming them, nor am I opposed to, from a tactical standpoint, from a PR standpoint, there is a thing called sign blindness. So if your sign is up way too long before an election, people stop noticing it. So it's not helpful for a campaign to leave it up too long anyway. But I'm very hesitant to legislate our fundamental freedom of free speech, especially regarding a campaign as someone who is a voting member of a body. It's just, anyway, that's where I kind of draw my line with that kind of stuff.
Would you like it as an agenda item, and then we can have this debate
Yeah,
when
no,
it's an agenda
I didn't
item?
intend for a full debate this evening, but would
Yes.
love to.
Okay, so we'll
Would
put
love
that
to-
on a future agenda.
2 more things.
Yes.
These are
You
very
s-
positive.
You already had 3. You already had 3.
I know.
I have 5 on my list, but he's hit 3 of them already.
Okay, well, let's see if I get the other 2. I don't know, going to the lake has reinvigorated me, you know, and it gave me time to think. The new trees at the ball fields have been appreciated by a number of people, and that is a good thing. So
Yeah, I hope we can get Mr.
we're
Nelson to
grateful.
talk about it.
Didn't the football team help us with
Yeah,
that?
Kenny will give you an update on that.
I don't mean to steal your thunder, but they've been noticed, and there's gratitude for those. And then one final item, fireworks.
Ah,
You see this?
4 out of 5.
This was from the Saturday night show. And I had the opportunity to join the chief and shoot off those fireworks Saturday night. This was one of them, and part of it came at us. So it's not without its risks. But I'm telling you, I haven't had that much fun since I was a kid, shooting off fireworks. And that was a beautiful show, and I want to acknowledge all of the volunteers that make that happen. I got to go out and see all the preparations and everything else, and that is a huge effort, and I appreciate what our fire department does for that and all the volunteers. That was just a wonderful show. The timing of the jet fuel exploding was just a little off, but otherwise it was really a lot of fun. We sat there and we watched fires start all around the city. And so that's the other item with respect to fireworks. We somehow have to do something to make it safer. I don't know how we do that, but I think we need to have a discussion about fireworks. They were shooting fireworks off over at the Cedar High School parking lot at 3 a.m. on the 5th of July. So that's a little bit out of control. I know in my own neighborhood, I hear them at 10, 11 o'clock at night for days after the holiday, and we just need to do something with that. Is that enough for me, Tom?
You did good.
Yeah, that was good. That, mine are all taken care of. How about you guys?
Yeah, pretty much. 4 out of 5 is not bad, Councilman.
Okay, that's good. Take 80%.
I had the similar concerns about fireworks, and I know that we have one neighbor here that's probably going to be speaking to us about it. But we do need to find a way to address that, and I know short of all out banning them, problem is in so many locations, our police force is out trying to take care of those, and I saw fire trucks running all over the city as I sat up on the hill watching it and watching fires explode out at Fairway Drive and down there at just below on Cove Drive and, well, all over the city. So we've got to find a way to control this.
The newspaper said there were 33 fires. That was
34, I
understated.
think, is what
It's
the chief
34.
reported.
34 fires that they fought on
Yeah.
4th of July.
Yeah.
And they weren't home in bed until late, the wee hours.
So I think this does bear some discussion before we get into the 24th of July celebration. And the only thing I wanted to add to what Councilman Isom said was just to congratulate our Lions Club and the folks that did the 4th of July parade and the great celebration that it was. I know some folks weren't able to be there and had concerns, but we had a couple of individuals live streaming the parade, so others got a chance to see it that couldn't be there. But it was an opportunity to celebrate our country and also sort of get us moving forward in a little more sense of normalcy. So I just wanted to congratulate them and all involved in that parade.
All right. Are there any other comments from the council? No. Okay, perfect. We will move on to staff comments with the employee of the month. Kenny gets to come up, and Austin gets to come up.
Good evening, folks. Kenny Nelson with Leisure Services. I'm happy to award Austin Bingham the July Employee of the Month. Many of you know Austin. He's worked here for several years. He's our Assistant Golf Course Superintendent. He was nominated by Steve Carter, his supervisor, and I just want to mention a couple things from Steve. It says, Austin has a great work ethic and attitude. He has been instrumental in the great changes that have been taking place at Cedar Ridge. He has always been willing to do what is necessary as the project moved along. He will always come in if there is an emergency or an issue that arises at the golf course. He is a great leader to other employees at the golf course. His experience is like having another superintendent at Cedar Ridge. Not only has Austin been instrumental, I feel, in the golf course project that everybody has known has gone on forever, but he's instrumental every day. That golf course staff is superb. And so Jared and Steve and Austin and JJ and all those guys are just outstanding. So I'm tickled to have him be nominated by Steve and receive this award, and I just appreciate his not only his work on the big projects, but his day-to-day stuff, so congratulate him.
High five, buddy. High five.
Yeah, you don't even have to go through the shake hand part, so congratulations. You're supposed to talk about trees, too. Sorry about that.
So I'll give an update for the trees. We finished planting those yesterday, so there are 90 trees we put in yesterday around the Hills Complex, which fields 1 and 2 have those around the fences. The drip system's in, the stakes are in. There's 3 varieties, a spruce, an aspen, and oak. So we've kind of made it to where it'll be a variety when they kind of grow up a little bit. It'll be a nice windscreen. It was fortunate that this project came across our plate. It's been a while, but the mayor and the city staff has been supportive of it, and so without their support, it wouldn't have taken place. So I'm grateful for them and
You have
their
to thank the football team.
willingness. And part of the project was the SUU football team had a group come and help lug those pots down and put them in the holes and dig and plant. And those guys that are really good at push, pulling, and lifting made it a lot easier on city staff. So we appreciate those SUU guys and the coaching staff and those guys that showed up and were able to help us. And we had the trees delivered in the ground and everything by 10 a.m. So then we had to put the stakes in, but those guys were instrumental. So we appreciate
When did you
all the help.
start, Ken?
8.
8? Wow.
So having the big fellas really helped. That was a good project.
It looks
those
really
guys.
nice.
Thank
It
you.
does. It looks really nice as you drive by, and I think in the future it's going to be a great, great addition to that complex.
I think
And
so
the
too.
parking lot pavements.
Oh, I was going to mention that, too.
Parking lots at the
Parking
lake
lot
are now
looks
paved and
great.
striped.
Yeah.
So we have 171 stalls with the 2 parking lots.
Last Sunday, they were pretty much all full.
There are several days where they are all full. But that's a great asset to have the asphalt and the trails and those kind of things done at the lake, so people can access it a lot easier and enjoy the area. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other staff comments? Okay, perfect. We'll move on to our business agenda with our public comment portion. Just make sure you state your name for the record.
Lisa Natwick. I live in Eagle Ridge. And every time the Bower Meadows RDO came up, I was out of town or already committed to something else. And so as you are considering the ordinance for that this evening, I just want to remind you to consider the traffic impacts. I know that I tried to watch the public hearing, and I didn't allow myself enough time to get all the way through, so I don't know what your end result was last week in your work meeting. One of the things that I was bothered by was it was stated that the road had been always going to go up right through Eagle Ridge, was basically the upshot of what was said. I don't find that on the street master plan. And I know we're getting ready to work on the master plan, and I have a question for Dawn. I came in after one of the the planning commission meeting, and Dawn was very helpful in explaining to me, what the layout was and how it was being considered. And he mentioned that there's going to be, you're working on the transportation plan, and that's going to kind of help coordinate the county and Enoch and Cedar City. I'm just curious, that's been over a month ago, I think I talked with him, and I wonder if that's on the agenda anywhere. At the time, we talked about how difficult public meetings are at this point.
Do you want Bittman, or you can,
We
one
have
of you can come?
have a contract with Avenue Consultants. We have drafts circulated to them, and as well as to our attorney to review. We hope to bring it forth next week
Oh, okay.
at the earliest.
Okay. I think that's about it, but just the squeaky wheel. Yeah, it's a neighborhood, not a byway. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Ronald Shelley, and I'm the other squeaky wheel from Eagle Ridge. Basically on the same issue. I am totally not against development of the area. I always looked at that empty land and go, well, one day it'll be developed. I was really hoping it'd be a little bit longer, but that's just the way it is. But really concerned about the traffic flow through the area. I already consider it oppressive already, and we're continuing to build more and more homes, more and more lots are being approved. And I'm just concerned that we're not getting the road infrastructure in before the people are all there. And that's when the disaster is. So I strongly encourage that we make sure, as part of all these plans we're making, not just how we're going to handle the traffic, but then follow through and actually see that the infrastructure's in before everyone starts to move into the area. I think that's very important, that we not always play firemen and having to go out and put out fires. Why don't we be proactive and get things well-designed and implemented before too many more lots and out there are developed and sold. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Carter Wilkie. Excuse me. I just wanted to quickly come on behalf of the Cedar City Area Chamber of Commerce. I assume most of you know about this, but tomorrow we are having an event, and we would just like to invite everyone here, both up here and in the audience. Everybody in the community is invited. We are having a luncheon. Part of that luncheon is to thank our first responders, so all of our firefighters, police officers, military, hospital staff, medical staff. They are all invited. We are going to be out at the Iron Springs Resort, out in the county, out by the landfill, going from 11:30 to 1:30. Registration is still open. We are asking for people to register just so we can kind of keep a better idea on our numbers. We are limiting it to 300. We do still have definitely some vacancy there, so people please do come out. It's going to be great. We have a person coming to sing, going to have a little patriotic program. We are doing everything we can as far as COVID guidelines. We're using multiple times number of tables and chairs. It's going to be outside. There will be a little bit of indoor seating as well. Hand sanitizing stations, hand sanitizer on every table. All the people working with food will have masks and gloves, and we're doing everything we can, and so hopefully it'll just be a great event. And so please mark it on your calendar and come out and join us tomorrow for some barbecue. It's going to be a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been here many times before, but this time I'm changing my hat. And I was so glad, Mr. Isom, that you talked about the fireworks. My whole northeast corner of my property was burned because of the fireworks across the street. And I don't want that risk again on the 24th. And thanks to the firemen and to the policemen. They contained that fire that could have been an absolute disaster. The policeman came to my door and told me to be aware of evacuating. And so I just can't risk that again on the 24th of July. If you can please ban that around my property. The fireworks came from across the street at the church parking lot. And so that's just got to stop. And it's
The church parking lot on 300, on University Boulevard there, Maradona, right
Yes,
across? Okay.
yes. On College Way, just across the street
Yeah.
from me. And so if we could ban that, and even up above, I'm afraid of the fireworks that are shooting off up above, because if that comes down on my property, that's going to take my house and everything. So I am very concerned about the fireworks, and I appreciate your addressing that. But I want to express my sincerity, appreciation to the firemen and the policemen.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comments? No? Okay, then we will move on to our public consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of minutes dated June 17th and 24th, 2020. Ratify bills dated June 26th, 2020. Approve returning extra swing joint wire and clock to turf equipment for future credit of $26,225.85. Approve vicinity plan for the VA Way subdivision.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to our action agenda. Item number 5, consider an ordinance amending Chapter 26 to allow RAP tax advisory boards the ability to recommend the use of unallocated funds.
So this is a ordinance revision. Previously, the ordinance only allowed unallocated funds to be used on city facilities. The revision still allows that, but it also gives the option for the RAP tax advisory boards to use those funds, to recommend the use of those funds to the council, even if no application comes in for them.
Right? Questions, concerns?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Belling? Councilman Hartley?
Aye.
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 Right, thank you. Item number 6, consider resolution approving the allocation of RAP tax funds as recommended by the Park and Rec Advisory Board.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
All right, is there a second?
Second?
All right, we'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 All right, consider resolution approving the allocation of RAP tax funds as recommended by the Arts Advisory Board.
Motion to approve the recommendations of the Arts Advisory Board?
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. And thank you so much to our RAP tax boards for their time and effort. Every year they really go through all these applications, sort through them, and so truly thank you for everything you do to make it get to this point. All right, item number 8, consider an ordinance changing the zone from residential agriculture to R1 for property located at VA Way 1600 South. Do you have anything new?
This is just a city property out there against VA Way that we're going to recommend selling off. The zone change came through. RA doesn't exist, so that's why we're bringing the zone change through, and we're doing it in conformance with the general plan.
Move to approve the ordinance changing the zone on VA Way 1600 South.
Second?
All right, we'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 All right. Consider an ordinance changing the zone from master plan development to R1 for property located at 3900 West, 1000 North.
I'd move to approve this one.
Again, this is in conformance with the general land update, I mean.
That's correct.
Okay.
Bob Platt, do I need to say anything? Nothing's changed and it's in conformance with the general plan.
You said, there you go.
Don't say anything. They're
I would
about to-
second that motion of Councilman Melling. I second the motion.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 Aye. You can tell your boy you just have to show up. You don't have to talk.
All right. Item number 10, consider an ordinance changing the general land use plan from high-density residential to central commercial for property located 300 South, 100 East.
Ron Larson, I don't know if you need an explanation. This is the property that we're just changing the zone, the general plan in the zone to match what the use is already there.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Adams. I
Aye.
don't know which one it was.
Aye.
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 All right. Consider item number 11, consider an ordinance changing the zone from R-3-M to central commercial for property located 300 South, 100 East.
Ditto. Same stuff.
Move to approve?
Second.
Start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Item number 12, consider an ordinance for the Bower Meadow Residential Development Overlay RDO.
I, for one, really like this RDO concept and have approved wholeheartedly similar proposals around the city. It just gives us a good view to things going forward, so I move to approve the ordinance.
I would like to say
Do you
prior
have
to a second or
something?
something, if I could. I too think that Mr. Hansen's worked hard to make this RDO work, and I think it is a beautiful area out there, and his comments about protecting the ridges and the pristine quality, I'm taking you at your word, Mr. Hansen, but I think that we do need to listen to the concerns of those areas regarding traffic, and I would urge us as a council and as a city, we have got to address the roads out in that area sooner than later. And we've got to look at that master planned road, and if it means, and I'm not the engineering department, but it means if we have to change it slightly through that one piece of property that is in the trust, then we need to look at that. But we need to move ahead on that road sooner than later. So I just wanted to state that before I want to second the motion that Mr. Isom
Can you
made,
hold
but
on for 2 seconds before
certainly
you
can.
second it to let Don talk?
I certainly can.
I would like to add to Mr. Or Councilman Phillips as well. The covenants that run with this proposal are far more restrictive than any of our zoning code. They are almost more like an HOA, far more restrictive than what we already have. I had the opportunity to walk the property with Mr. Hansen some time ago. The plan is very conscientious of the views, of the integrity of the landscape. It will be far from the greatest thing to detract from the natural beauty of the area. These restrictions are very conscientious of that, but I do want to also emphasize my concerns with the traffic. I think we need to work on that other road ASAP and work with our engineering and or police departments as well to address the traffic concerns nearby. We have a lot of cars going way too fast right in front of houses. And as someone who used to live on Beacon Drive in the lower portion with little children, that is not a very happy or safe feeling to have your kids in the front yard, period. And so we need to address that and work on something there as a city. But otherwise, I would echo those comments that have already been made.
I would, the same. I appreciate what Joel has done out there in being conscientious, not only the development of that land, but also being conscious of the people that are already out there and trying to maintain that neighborhood. But we do need to address the road, and I I'm hoping that that's what maybe you're going to give us an update on.
Well, that was not it.
Okay,
I hope,
darn it.
sorry to disappoint. But hopefully we'll be looking at those issues through that transportation master plan. So hopefully that will help. I just wanted to make one comment, just for clarity. Last week, there was mention of a water tank within this RDO. So it's a master plan water tank, of course, with a supply and return line. So that is a master plan implement within this RDO. But I wanted to be clear, there have been alternatives discussed, alternative locations discussed, as Joel had mentioned, but none of those locations are set in stone. So it certainly would come down to possible property negotiations, other property owners, or an amendment to the water master plan. So I just want to make that very clear that that alternative location is not set.
And currently, the master plan has it in this RDO.
Yes, it does.
So I guess I would ask a question of Mr. Hanson, and perhaps yourself, Don, as a city planner. If there is some reason that we can't negotiate, what does that do to your proposal for the RDO? Yeah.
Well, take that.
I mean, I think everyone's intent they would like to be relocated, but for some reason if it couldn't, and I don't know what all those reasons might be.
Well, there's currently already a master plan water tank
Right.
that's going to be to the north of this property that would be a much better property to put that on, and that's been the discussion that we've had with
Right.
Kit, with Robbie Mitchell. I can tell you that if somebody wants to push me into a negotiation with putting a water tank on my project, I'm going to have some serious heartburn with it. I'm not going to be happy. I don't know that we have the elevations on that ridge to be able to put a water tank there, and I would think that you're going to have some serious blowback from everybody in the Cross Hollow Hills and everybody else out there to put a water tank out in the middle of that ridge when there's a much better location with much better slope to the north of it that already has been master planned, and it would be much cheaper to have one tank than two tanks. The other problem I have is getting backed into a corner where now all of a sudden we bring up the point of property negotiations. Well, I know there's people that have been pushing real hard for me to get a road, to put a road through that valley right there to the west of the estates to connect all this property to the north of it, and I have not been in agreement with that. This road that comes out from Westview Drive that we all talk about as far as traffic goes, services everybody but the people that live in this property, right? Eagle Ridge people, the estates people, 99 times out of 100, they don't get out here on South Mountain Drive and go west. But everybody that lives west in the county uses that road as their main access to the city. So to tell me that it's going to be beneficial for me to put a road through this valley and have it degrade all of my property values to make it more convenient for this landowner up here, yeah, I have a problem with that. A water tank on that ridge right there, whether it's on the master plan or not, is not something that's ever been brought up to me in the 16, 17 years I've been working on this project. The only time the water tank ever got brought up was halfway through the RDO, and then somebody found it on a master plan drawing. It wasn't in the master plan drawings on the website. It was somewhere buried in the Public Works Department. So I have a real problem with being told here that that could pop up sometime again in my RDO when I've gone through all the effort that I have to do that, because what a water tank right there on that ridge is going to do is completely ruin all my property values and all the views, which is what I've worked so hard to maintain. So.
Yeah.
But Joe, you understand, I mean, the master plan says that's where it's at. You also are reasonable enough to know that if we approach the property owner to the north and say, well, this is where we want to put it, he's going to come in and tell the council the exact same thing.
But there's already a master plan one in their RDO up there.
Right.
Right?
The reason why this need to be brought up is so for you and the council are crystal clear. As of today, there is a water tank master plan to go in that area.
Yeah, and the problem I have with that is it come up halfway through the RDO process. I don't know where it's published. I've never seen it, and I've never heard it discussed in the 16 years. So to sit here and tell me that it could come up again in the future, yes, I have a problem with that. Whether it's on a master plan drawing that's buried somewhere in the website or not. Because I've never heard about it and it's never been discussed. So this road right here, I can tell you, when we bought this property 17 years ago, that road right there was master planned, and I knew about it. I knew we would have to build that road when we put 78 lots over here. So in order for me to sell property to Brian Peterson to develop Talon Point, we had to put 7,700 feet of road in. So yeah, I swallowed that pill and we built it. And then we deeded it to the city. So to come on this late in the game and tell me, well, we might have to put a water tank on your project, I have some serious issue with that. At the time frame at which it came into the project and how it's been done. I mean, we had a month and a half, 2 months worth of discussion on this RDO before I ever heard anything about a water tank. So to tell me it's part of the master plan, I have a little bit of a problem with that. Is the Public Works directory somewhere that me as a developer, I have to pay attention to find out what's master planned for my area?
Yeah, I don't know the background of how this came to light.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
Other than it got brought up in a meeting one day.
Yeah.
About
a month ago is when those discussions started happening. That's
Right,
when I was
and
informed.
so you can because I've been working on this for much longer than a month, I have some serious heartburn with it. You know, we've been, let's see, let me see if I can get this right. We've been held up because we didn't notice it right. Then we've been held up because it didn't get noticed right the second time. We got held up because of COVID. Then we got held up because we didn't want to have such a controversial subject in a Zoom meeting when we did get back to public hearings. So, you know, there's 4 meetings we've been held up on right there. And it didn't come to light till after any of that stuff. So from where I'm sitting, yeah, that's something I've got serious heartburn with.
So while we talked to Joel about these issues during the staff conversations with Joel, we told him that we would bring this up during the public meetings. We'd make a clean record of it. I think we've accomplished that, and we can move on.
Thank you.
All right.
So we have
So Craig made a motion.
and Scott had seconded.
And
Scott hadn't yet seconded.
Well, I was in the process of doing that.
Oh, I see.
In light of all this, it is a little bit disturbing that we're just kind of hitting all of that to us now, but I still think it's a worthy project, and I think it's the right location for what Mr. Hansen's proposing, so I would second the motion of Councilman Isom.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. Consider an ordinance amending the language of the annex transition zone.
It's just a housekeeping matter, cleaning up this ordinance so it reflects what it should. We also strike some language requiring conditional use permits for various uses in the annex transition zone.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 All right. Consider item number 14. Consider an ordinance amending Chapter 37 to allow government entities the ability to connect to the city water supply system outside city limits.
And this is just the ordinance revision that was put in place based on the conversation we had with Mr. Monroe, providing water to a subdivision out in the county.
I just want to make sure that this, by changing this ordinance, we're keeping this as the exception rather than the rule. This is in the case of,
Well, this would be the rule for government entities, but there really is no exception. We're just saying we don't provide water outside our boundaries unless you're a government entity, then you can ask for that from the
but it
city
still
council.
requires a majority of the vote of the council to approve it.
Correct.
So it's not automatic.
Correct.
And there are a number of water companies outside of our city limits that provide residential water even though they're not part of the Conservancy District, would those qualify as government entity or those excluded?
Like,
You're saying
yeah,
private
they
water
private?
companies?
Yeah, private water companies that provide culinary water.
Then no.
They are not governmental. I know legally they're nonprofits technically. So is the Conservancy District then a municipal type, like a government entity as far as legal structure?
Special service district.
Okay, got it.
Special service. I think the distinguishing factor is they tax.
I see. Okay.
Those, I mean, I guess if you're a member of the private water company, there's an assessment. Technically, it's not a tax.
Got it. Okay, appreciate that.
Good evening, Tom Jett.
Good job.
I mentioned this after the meeting last week that I thought there should be just one basic line in here that says this is meant to be on a temporary, this ordinance is meant to be for temporary services versus a regular long-term use agreement with our city. And I think that would just clear it up for anybody that comes in, any government organization that comes in thinking we can hook onto this on a long-term basis, and we don't for this one, but we do on this. If we just explain at the very beginning of the line saying this is designed for temporary use and, you know, whatever that, or emergency use. So that was just my thought on that. Thank you.
So Mr. Monroe's request was for a permanent backup system for that subdivision. I don't think there's anything that I understood to be temporary about it.
But it was
not the
emergencies only.
primary.
It was an emergency backup.
Yeah. As far as the ordinance revision, I'm comfortable with it where it's at. If I do, because it still leaves us open to evaluate on a case-by-case basis. I don't imagine too many government entities asking us to provide primary water long-term.
Unless the BLM wants to build campgrounds up the canyon and wants us to connect to them.
Good point.
They have plans to build one up Cedar Canyon and one up Schertz Canyon currently. They held public hearings, or at least a public comment session, 2 weeks ago on the one in Schertz Canyon.
But in such a situation, if indeed the council did decide to reject that offer, we would be legally okay because the ordinance reads by a majority of the council. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but just that we would be legally protected.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Motion?
Motion to approve the change?
Second.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 All right. Consider an ordinance for a four-way stop sign at the intersection of 700 South and Cove Drive and a no parking zone where the trail crosses Cove Drive.
We discussed this last week. This is Church Street, Cove Drive. We're looking at putting in a four-way stop sign at this location. And then our trail system comes over to Cove Drive about at this point, and we'll have a trail crossing Cove Drive. We're planning on putting some caution flashers in there to warn drivers that there's people crossing the street right there, and we've pretty much got things underway as far as the design and acquiring the equipment. So
Okay, will that crosswalk be painted as well as the flashing signs?
both.
Okay. Motion to approve?
Second.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 All right. Item number 16, consider a resolution placing a moratorium on the mixed-use zone.
So based on the discussion from last week, I put together a resolution, put a moratorium on the mixed-use zone for a period of 90 days. It also spells out the reasons why. Essentially, the reasons why is that mixed-use zone was put in place to give us a good mixture of commercial and business and residential, both low and high density. Currently, the ordinance is really just giving us high density. So that was the justification behind it, to look at rewriting it so we can get product of what we originally intended the zoning ordinance to produce.
And this is effective immediately upon passage, meaning tonight.
Tyler, would you tell them what you told us in the planning
There's
commission
already some
last
stuff
night?
in the pipeline though, right?
Yeah.
So last night, Mr. Platt brought up they've got a few projects that are coming through for the mixed use zone change. So because their applications have been filed, they vest in the use of that zone.
Of course.
Being approval. So it would be in effect upon the mayor's signature, and the applications going forward would not have that use.
And so to follow up on that, realizing that those already in the pipeline are not subject to the moratorium, have we had, since our discussion last council meeting, other than those that were already in before, any new applications in the last week?
Not that I'm aware of. Dawn would know that.
This is for a zone change?
No,
Mixed
it's
use.
for mixed use.
Go to mixed use.
I don't think we only have one in the pipeline.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge.
Is that the one we discussed last night?
That's the one that Mr. Platt brought up, yes.
Okay, appreciate
And does
that.
staff feel that 90 days is an appropriate time to rewrite and to look at this?
Appropriate or sufficient?
I don't think you're given enough time myself, but knowing the workload upstairs and coordinating with council and finding out what they want, and coordinating with home builders and finding out what they want, and trying to synthesize all that, I don't think 90 days.
Well, the
is
last thing I want to do is do this and then not have enough time
I
to
would have
complete
to
it.
echo that opinion. I mean,
20 days, okay?
it's better. So I think the workload up there is
Manageable.
tremendous.
So right now it's development season, and every developer's out
Sure.
there. Every developer's upstairs constantly, whether they're with Don or the engineers or Drew. It's just this time of year is very congested. The winter time, if we were to do this in November, December, we could probably move a little quicker, because
Mhm.
those developers
Sure.
are not. And right now, when they're coming in, they want they want everything done now so they can get.
Yesterday.
Get done yesterday.
They want it done yesterday so they can build stuff, right? It's the good weather. That's when they build. And that's just how it works. So
I guess on the flip side of that, that's why we want to shorten that time to not inconvenience them while this moratorium, so.
still have options to use other zoning tools.
So we could do
Yeah.
120 and try to get it done as fast as possible.
I would almost be inclined to stay on the 90, but then really try to get this through, and if we really can't, we can extend it. But I think that kind of, I hate to burden staff too much, but I really think it sends a signal to our building community that this is something that we want to push through quickly, while still taking some time to get that input.
I think, excuse me, Councilman, I was just going to say, I think we have to listen a little bit to what staff is saying, and I know we have issues with our PUD zone that we're looking at. We have issues with our SHD zone that we're looking at.
That one is moving forward.
Yeah, but it still has a ways to go.
Yes.
Not done.
That's correct.
So I want to make sure that we are being sensitive to getting it right. I don't want to have to revisit this in 2 years and go, well, we hurried it. We didn't quite get it right. We got some of it, but we didn't get it all. So I would entertain a motion to accept the amendment as written, with the exception of changing it to 120 days rather than 90 days. That would be the motion I would make.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All right. We will start with Councilman Isom.
You have to start, but
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All right, that fails.
Okay, now we need another motion.
Yes.
So move to approve it at the 90-day timeframe. I'm just concerned about construction and property moving and other things.
Okay.
I did like the comment that Mr. Bittman said that they could use other zoning tools. doesn't mean it shuts down everything, and so I guess that kind of swayed my opinion.
Yeah, and we can extend it anyway.
We have a motion for the 90-day as written. Is there a second?
I would second that.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
All right, that one passes 4-1. With that, Mr. Isom,
Move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.